Welcome back. South Africa is starting to count the cost of wild weather in the country. That's proved fatal for some. The South African Weather Service has issued a number of warnings across the country this week. There has been major flooding in KwaZulu-Natal and the Western Cape, heavy snowfall in the Free State and Eastern Cape. Now, yesterday, a tornado, unusual for the area and South Africa in general, wreaked havoc in Tembisa in Ekurhuleni in Gauteng. Well, to discuss, we're now joined by Michelle van Staden, the head of claims at Mutual and Federal. Great to have you with us, Michelle. Are those claims coming in thick and fast?
Oh, absolutely, Francis. Yesterday we registered just short of 1,000 claims, and that's in our business alone, and I understand the rest of the industry is probably over about 5,000.
And that's very unusual.
Absolutely. I mean, it's probably a good, 3 times what we would usually register in an average day.
Yeah. Wow. The concern is that premiums will go up because you will pay out a lot of these claims, or is this sort of factored in that every now and then we have a bit of freak weather?
Yeah. I mean, I understand the concern, but I think it's really important for consumers to understand that, this is what the industry is there for. And we absolutely plan for, we call this a catastrophe in insurance speak, and it's something that we plan in our premiums. It's something that we anticipate to happen with a certain frequency. So, certainly there will be no impact generally for a disaster like this on people's premiums. I mean, we are anticipating that the order of magnitude of what happened yesterday will be somewhere within the region of about R1 billion to possibly as high as R2 billion in one day.
Is that overall?
That will be overall across the industry in all areas based on what took place. But this is something that is factored in. And I think the South African insurance industry is very well regulated. We're well positioned to pay all of the claims. And I think it won't have an adverse effect on consumers thereafter.
R1 billion. Wow. Are you able to determine which are the really intense areas for claims, things like that yet?
Yes, so at this point in time we've had just over 80% of our claims coming from non-motor. So that's mostly buildings, houses, damage to property, which is quite different to when one would experience heavy hail, where the majority of the claims would come through on motor vehicles.
And which provinces?
So certainly in KZN, and then of course, the tornado that happened in Tembisa yesterday, that has affected here in Gauteng. So those are the main areas of focus at this point in time.
Insurance companies are becoming proactive. You send out warnings. I don't know if your company does, but a lot of people receive, put your car inside, something like that. Is that a trend to... It seems to be a win-win. You warn people. Are you starting to watch the weather, basically? Is that becoming part of what you do?
No, absolutely. It's a critical part of what we do to mitigate people's losses. So the South African Weather Service is very proactive. We have automated services where we connect automatically to their information. And then I'm aware that, yesterday at Mutual and Federal, we sent out over 300,000 SMSs to our clients, informing them of the severe weather conditions that we were anticipating, and encouraging them to, take the appropriate precautions, which is really important.
Does it make a difference? Do you notice that it's changing things?
It makes an enormous difference because, people want to avoid a loss generally. It's inconvenient for people to experience a loss from hail or severe weather. So where people are able to and they are informed, it certainly does make a big difference. And we're very grateful for the participation of our clients in that regard.
Okay, so my final question is that we have this crazy situation. This was one of the warmest winters we've seen. Besides this cold snap, there's global warming. It seems like extreme weather is with us for a while. Does that make everything more difficult to predict, harder for you, basically?
Look, there's no doubt about it. The impact of climate change is something that profoundly affects our industry. I've just come back from a conference where the industry spent 3 days, where this was one of the major topics. It's something that we do, however, plan for and that we look for in the long term. And, at the end of the day, it's what ultimately gets us up in the morning, insurers. It's when things like this happen, it's our privilege to be there for people, and particularly in a claims environment. So it's something we anticipate and we plan for. It puts us under lots of pressure, but it's a great pleasure to be there for
Is
people.
this something I said last last question. This is it. Is this something that will highlight the importance of insurance to people? Because we do hear that as soon as times get tough, you start easing off things like insurance.
It's absolutely critical. I mean, I'm so sympathetic to where people are from an economic perspective. When you have to make a choice between bread, milk, and insurance premiums, it seems like an obvious one. But it's at times like this when one incurs, really, really big losses. But further to that, I think insurance plays a really vital role in the economy because, in South Africa, we have about 70% of our vehicles not insured on our roads. And that places a huge impact in terms of what actually happens in the economy. Certainly, a lot of the houses in the area of Tembisa that were hit yesterday are also uninsured. And that now becomes the obligation of government to fulfill. So I think, certainly, as insurers, we have a very big interest in ensuring that, as we try to redress some of the things that in the past, the economic imbalances and people can afford insurance premiums, that we create products and services that are accessible for people.
The mayor of Ekurhuleni was actually saying this morning that they will be looking at housing for the poor. Thank you very much. That was Michelle van Staden